innocent friend to get swept away by knowledge.
Today I want to talk about Nicaraguan Sign Language. Maybe some terms you don't understand. I'm not going to explain all of them in the video because they don't really go towards the topic I'm discussing. But if you have questions about them, please let me know, and I'll be more than happy to do a video about them in the future. Nicaraguan Sign Language was a unique opportunity for scientists and linguists to study a language as it naturally developed. Before the 1970s, there weren't really any opportunities for deaf children and deaf adults to get together and meet, so there was no deaf culture. Deaf children just learned signs at home to facilitate communication with their families and did the best they could. Occasionally, deaf children would meet in schools, but they would never keep in contact, and they would never meet future generations of deaf children, which means each generation of deaf children had to start over completely new. In 1977, a program was developed for deaf children in a school in Nicaragua, and this allowed a deaf community to begin forming. Children not only hung out with each other in school and learned together, but they spent time with each other outside of school. It also provided a place for the next generation of children, either the year after, a couple years after, to join into the language and learn and develop along with it. There was a continuous inflow of deaf children that kept the language growing. The first stages of this language were simple but fast. Their vocabulary expanded rapidly, and their grammar got more complex. As the children traded in their home signs for the more systematized sign system of the developing Nicaraguan Sign Language, grammar really began to develop, and the signs weren't just simple representations anymore. It was also important to know that this is not a direct translation of Spanish. It has a unique grammar, much like American Sign Language is not the same grammar as English. In fact, the words are put together in a different order, and the words have different meanings. These first children to learn the language were fluent by adulthood. The language had developed so much that they were able to express any idea expressible in any other language. The language continued to develop and continues to develop with each generation, adding new words and grammar systems. Why is it so interesting to linguists? Well, first and most obviously, it's a rare opportunity to see a language born from practically nothing. Each family had their own signs. It was basically the closest that we can ever get to the forbidden experiment. This situation also provided signers from different levels of the language that you can compare at the same time. The first people who learn the language, their grammar is less complex than the more modern speakers. You can see empirical evidence of the difference in the languages in living subjects. Most sign languages tell placement not with words like on or in or about, but with actual hand placement. So you'll have a symbol for something like table, and then you'll put the dog symbol under it to say the dog's under the table. The first few versions of Nicaraguan Sign Languages didn't have that. They had more like spoken language constructions. One experiment took individuals from that earlier group and individuals from the later group. One of the tests, they would take one of those individuals into a room, hide a token somewhere in the room, blindfold them, spin them around so they were disoriented, take the blindfold off, and have them tell them where the token was. In the second test, they would do something similar. They would have a little replica of a room, put a token somewhere in the replica, blindfold the person, spin the replica around, and then ask the person where the token was. The speakers from the later versions with that construction I described performed better in every test, which proves that your language and how you use it helps encode spatial reasoning. It's also done a bit to prove that sign language is in fact a different language. It's a very good case to show that to people. Some people still don't realize that sign language is not just a signed form of the spoken language in the area. Those exist. There is signed English, but it's not American Sign Language. American Sign Language is not just finger spelling. It is in fact its own language, just like Nicaraguan Sign Language, French Sign Language, English Sign Language. Each generation of deaf children had to start. Bye.